This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there, live.
Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, welcome to a special podcast edition of our Wrestling Insiders program. We can't get the WWE Hall of Famer, Mr. USA Tony Atlas, into the studio with so many restrictions going on right now with the government, but I am very happy to say that our Hall of Fame friend is on the telephone with us right now. Tony, how are things up in Auburn, Maine today, buddy?
Well, until I woke up this morning, everything was absolutely going along as usual, but then, unfortunately, Dan Morella of Boston Wrestling texted me and told me the sad news of the passing of my very, very good friend, Howard Finkel.
Howard Finkel. Well, the wrestling world, it's a sad place right now over the loss of Howard. He was the first of two employees signed by Vince and Linda McMahon when they took over the company in 1982. Howard, along with the guy that really showed me the guiding light of professional wrestling in that company, Ed Cohen, who ran the live events department for so many years. Both have passed now within just a couple of years of each other. Tony, Howard began at old MSG, I believe, in the late 1970s, and what a soundtrack he set for some of the biggest professional wrestling matches of all time.
You know, Howard Finkel and myself, we became very, very good friends because I know how when people seen him in his later years was over 200 pounds. But when I met Howard Finkel, he didn't weigh no more than maybe about 160 or 170 at the very most. And as y'all well know, from reading my book and hearing stories being told, I was a very temperamental person, mainly because of the use of the steroid. It made me even more temperamental. But Howard was the guy that Vince used to always go to go and talk to me whenever I was upset. We had such a close friendship. It was a guy like Howard and S.D. Jones were probably doing, when I first went to WWF, well, possibly my two best friends was Howard Finkel and Special Delivery S.D. Jones. And no matter how angry I got, I was always able to, Howard was always able to talk to me. He always put in a good word for me. And I would not be in the WWE Hall of Fame right now if it really wasn't for Howard, because Howard pushed very hard in order to get me inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. So he was a true gentleman, very talented young man. I never knew all the talent that Howard had until we did Legend House in 2012, which didn't air on WWE Network until 2014. But if you watch that program, you can see the closeness of me and Howard. And then when Piper and all of them was picking on Howard at the tape because he didn't travel the roads with us. If you notice, I always stood up for Howard, and he always stood up for me when we met somewhere. We was always very, very close. And now my wife, I hadn't told her yet, but she's going to be heartbroken because her and Howard was the best of friends, because they would talk on the phone at least once every 2 or 3 months. He just called to see how she was doing. They were just she liked it, Howard, a great deal. Anybody that ever met him also know what a wonderful individual he is. He never hurt nobody in the business. He never backstabbed nobody, never stooged nobody out. He just came in and did a job. Now, there's one more thing. I know I got the gift of gab about Howard that a lot of people didn't know. He was what we used to call the wrestling encyclopedia.
Definitely.
I don't care what match you ask him about or what year. He said, hey, what year did Bruno Sammartino take on Pedro Morales? And before you could finish it, he said, oh, you mean Stage Stadium 19, da-da-da-da-da-da. And he was like the wrestling encyclopedia. I don't care what match you ask him about. Going all the way back to the 70s, even in the early 60s, he had knowledge of it. He was a very, very knowledgeable person when it comes to wrestling. I'd say he would know just about as much about wrestling than anybody ever been in the business.
Well, WWE has kept him around on the payroll since the late 1970s. not for nothing. Even now, from what I'm told, they've been taking very good care of him, even while he was receiving medical care over the past 2 or 3 years. Tony, why do you think that you and Howard had such a special bond? Why was he able to relate to you when you'd have these fits during your, maybe, I guess, steroid times earlier in your WWF career?
Howard was very good at reading people, and Howard knew I would not hurt him. He just knew that. He knew that about me. I was the type of person, if I would holler and scream at you to the top of my lungs. But as long as you keep your hands to yourself, you ain't got to worry about me touching you. I'm not going to touch you if you're not going to touch me. Because my mother taught us something about arguing. Like, if I'm having a debate with you and you started swearing at me and cursing at me, that means that you got a lack of intelligence. And the reason you resort to name calling and resort to uncouth behavior, because you're not smart enough to debate me in an intelligent, mature way. Well, the same thing when it comes to throwing your fist. If a person is not a threat to you, then there's no need for you to react in a defensive manner, to use violence against a person that caused no threat towards you. Not to get off the subject, that is the weakness of a lot of people that cause domestic violence. Most people that beat on women, and don't bring up Johnny Weaver again, that same guy, 9 times out of 10, that same guy jumps on women because he don't have the balls to fight a man. You take another guy that is a bully that would jump on someone that is smaller than them. But if you look at all the people that Tony Atlas ever jumped on or wanted to fight, they was always bigger or stronger or was able to defend themselves. Mostly anybody that I felt could not defend themselves against me, I would take no physical action towards them. And Howard knew that about me. He was a very good, he understood characters. Like when Vince brings somebody in for an interview, he was have to say, Howard, what do you think of the person? And you always ask Howard advice, what did he think of the person? Because Howard had very good insight on people. So he kind of knew that he could talk to me, he knew how to approach me in order not to make me madder than what I were.
Well, I think a lot of ring announcers are very perceptive. I've become friendly with some of them. Gary Michael Capetta, for one. Frank Kransnowski, that used to do a lot of the Northeast WWF live event ring announcing, even though I've never met him.
Gary, what do you call it? Gary Patella? What was his name?
Gary Michael Capetta, yeah. The one
he was always scared of me. He later told me, I think it was probably about 10 years ago, he later told me that when I was in, that we was on a show together, and somebody told him that Tony Atlas was in the dress room. And he said, well, I'm not going in there. And he said, why not? He said, I'm afraid of that guy. He said, he's the most obnoxious, some of the best I ever met in my life. And he said, oh, no, that's the old Tony Atlas. We were strung out on drugs. This Tony is very nice. You would like him, Michael. And so he came in, and he was kind of shocked that he was able to, for once in his whole career, was able to approach me without a fear. But, oh, yeah, he was scared to death of me.
Did he attempt to pet you like he did Cecil the Lion down here at the studio?
If I came into the dress room, back in them days, you can ask Michael this. If I came into the dressing room, he would leave out of the dressing room.
Really?
Or he would never be in it. He didn't want to come in the dressing room of this show. I think it was a guy called Mike Dano. That used to promote. Mike Dano also promoted James Brown and other. So he wasn't just a wrestling promoter. He was just a promoter of entertainment. So he would book wrestlers, boxers. He had a ex-baseball player, singers, rock concerts. He worked with James Brown, a lot of the big name celebrities. So he was a very replica guy. I don't know what happened to him. I wish I did. I hope he's still living. He probably not, because he probably, if he's living, he probably got to be about 90 years old now. But Howard was a very young man. He was only 69 years old. But if you remember in Legend House, I talked to Howard a great deal about working out and losing weight, because Howard was about 300 pounds.
He got very big in later
years. He was very heavy, yeah.
He was very slight if you look back at those old MSG events that he would ring announce. He was a much slimmer man.
Yeah, I would say at the very most 170 pounds, or maybe 180 at the very most, But he stayed at that weight for a long, long, long time. We were doing the announcing. And it was after the Hogan era. When Howard put on the weight, because if you look at all the tapes with him and Hulk Hogan back in the late 80s and early 90s, Howard was still, pretty lean person.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I saw Howard at Legend House, that's when I was just like shocked. I said, what in the hell happened? He put on this. I said, he put on that weight in a very short time.
Yeah, now that you mention it, maybe when he was taken off the road, maybe he slowed down so much that he wasn't moving around as much. Maybe that led to it.
You know, that happened with a lot of people. You know, you get used to, like a lot of the guys I used to work out with, they was all bulked up and everything. And like the late Rocky Johnson, when I last saw him, you know, he had one of the best physiques in pro wrestling, and it wasn't a slight of muscle left on him. You take superstar Billy Graham, he don't, you know, you would never think when you see him that he ever had any muscles a day in his life, because a lot of athletes, not just in the wrestling world, but in other world too, once they no longer competing, they kind of get away from the gym. Luther Rigler, he stopped competing, but he kept himself, you know, in pretty good shape. If you see him now, he's not as big as he used to be, but he still, you know, got a great physique. I wouldn't want to tangle with him.
Right. You mentioned earlier. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I want to take this time. I didn't do it at the beginning, which I want to apologize, to give my condolences to Howard and his family. He's going to be really, really missed, especially by me. We were friends for 40 years. I knew Howard for more than 40 years, from 1979 all the way up until today. He was always very close, you know, to my heart, and it was very, very sad. The sad thing about it is that we never got to do anything again after we did Legend House. And I talked to Jimmy Hart today on the phone, the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, and he brought up the same thing. He says it's a shame that the WWE never brought us guys back. You know, out of 8 wrestlers that was on that show, 3 is gone already.
Yeah, I noticed that today.
And we got 2 hanging on by a thread. You know, people don't know Hillbilly Jim had heart trouble about a year or so ago. He almost died.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Hillbilly Jim did. Jimmy Hart was telling me about it today. So Hillbilly Jim is in bad. He's recovering some, but he said, you know, he had trouble. And then I hear also today that Hacksaw Jim Duggan a little while back had heart trouble. So
I think he's on the mend. He's been out making appearances since then, so that's a good sign.
That's a very, very good sign, because I saw him and it made me feel good after he had his trouble. But still, you know, Vader had heart trouble, and then he came back on the scene. But you see what happened?
It didn't work out well in the end.
It didn't work out well, because a lot of times when you have heart trouble, the best thing to do is to stop doing what you're doing.
Right. And also...
And Hacksaw is right back doing what he was doing. So I hope, even though me and him, we had our differences on Legend House, I just hope that things turn out well for Hacksaw. Always got love in my heart for him. And Hillbilly Jim, if you watch Legend House, I mean, I couldn't have a better friend than Hillbilly Jim. I mean, he's a wonderful, wonderful, big, I wouldn't want to fight him. He's a big, strong country boy, you know. So, I mean, he'd tear your head off, you know, if he really wanted to.
Right.
But he's a gentleman. He's very intelligent. And me and Howard and Piper and all of us, you know, we became close on Legend House. So if people ever get a chance, you know, maybe we sit down one day on Boston Wrestling. If people are interested, I would like to have a discussion with you about my relation in Legend House, you know, with Piper and Howard and Pat Patterson, and how the day went, and you know, exactly how the bond we built during that period. Right. Pat Patterson said we were doing Legend. I told me and Howard Finkel and all of us, he said they would never be able to do another one, and if they do, it would never be as good as this one.
8 great personalities.
Yeah, but the thing about the personalities, well, none of us, well, I knew Howard, but outside of Howard, he was the only person that I knew personally. See, what a lot of people don't know about wrestling, we would see each other in the, when I see a wrestler in the dressing room, the same if I meet a person in the gym. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only time I see or talk to this person is in the arena.
Right.
Once we left the arena, we all went our own separate ways. We all had our own cliques. Remember, I mentioned that to you many a time.
Absolutely.
That, everybody had their own cliques. Like me and SD, we would take off and do what we got to do. Or me and Rocket, we take off, do what we got to do. And then Big Hacksaw and maybe the Big Boss Man, they would take off, and Piper would maybe go with someone. So outside of the ring, we didn't have that closeness that we had. Now down south during the 70s, it was different. It was more family orientated in the 70s, up until about the mid 80s. I was saying once, did not blame Vince, but the business itself changed. Once the Hogan Earl started, that's where the separation of the wrestlers started too.
Okay.
Because there was where there was less places to go. See, the wrestler always kept a close relationship because they all believe that's the same people you meet on your way up. You meet them same people on your way down.
Right.
Like, for example, let's say you meet Pat Patterson on your way up. Well, let's say you do something wrong to Pat Patterson and he don't forget it. Then you go to the WWF during that time, WWF, and find out that Pat Patterson is the booker. Well, now Pat remember how you treated him. So you met him on your way up, you treat him like shit, but now you're on your way down and you meet Pat on your way down. And that's why wrestlers in the olden days didn't want to burn too many bridges with each other. But then once there was no place to go, the only place there were to go is just the WWF, then the whole personality of wrestling changed because people knew then that they don't have to worry about meeting this guy in another territory. This guy can't hurt him in another territory because there ain't no other territory.
Right.
You see?
Well, you noted, Tony, earlier in the interview, you said that when you lived in the home with Howard and the other legends on Legends House, that you said he had special skills that weren't shown when the program was on WWE Network. What special skills did Howard Finkel have? Howard
could write. He could write music.
Really?
Poetry. Yeah. He was a cook, So, but a lot of stuff that Howard would help write. Him and Jimmy Hart and like all the songs that we did was put together by Howard, Jimmy Hart, and Hillbilly Jim. And another guy that would really surprise me was Piper. Piper could play any instrument.
Wow.
Piano, organ, guitar, bagpipes, any instrument Piper could play. So there was a lot of stuff about Piper that people didn't know if they had to do it all. Yeah, they had to do it all over again. I mean, I most definitely would put his music skills out there because he was very talented in the music field. And what surprised me was that Howard had ability to write music and lyrics and stuff like that. And a lot of the ideas that we did on Legend House came up with Howard. Remember we had this argument when we did the Flamingo. Flock, go Flamingo.
Yes, yep.
Flock, go Flamingo. And then I got angry, and I said, everybody in this room, with the exception of Howard Finkel, could kiss my ass. You remember that scene?
I remember, yep.
Howard was the one that I excluded.
You liked Howard even back then?
Well, Howard never belittled me. I mean, them guys, they was belittling my thinking. It's an art show. Right. So I'm the only artist in the freaking room, and they want to tell me how to draw. And couldn't one of them draw a straight line? They were just, there was some big egos there. There was real big egos. Howard never had an ego. That's why we always got along. And I think I crashed with people that had egos because I had an ego.
Well, that happens a lot in the wrestling industry, yeah.
Yeah, almost. I said got these big egos, so they want the credit for everything that goes down. Every time I say something, even though the Piper will go, no. At first, I didn't want to get involved. But then Patterson talked to me and Howard talked to me. So I said, okay, I get involved. Then they asked me what I thought, and they shot me down.
Well,
so the producer asked me, he said, well, what do you think of the music, Tony? And before I could say anything, Tony, I like it. You don't have to comment on it. I said, Piper, he didn't fucking ask you, he asked me. And I was treated like that by all of them except for Howard, and Hillbilly Jim.
Well, they respected you.
Howard had respect for me, and Hillbilly Jim had respect for me. I was talking to Jimmy Hart, and we was fussing about, he used to fight with me about what I cook in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Jimmy, everybody here don't want to eat beans and potatoes every day. That corned beef cabbage. Oh, you cooking that old meat? Oh, no, Jimmy Hart. Oh, look at that old meat. Oh, Tony, don't show me that meat. Oh, no, how can you eat that? That's not good for you. I said, Jimmy, you sit there and have you a piece of this corned beef and cabbage, I bet you change your mind.
If he tried it, he might have liked it.
He might like it, but no, he went in the kitchen, took his baked potatoes, stuck it in the oven, and sat there and ate a baked potato while the rest was enjoying, corned beef and cabbage. But that's Jimmy. I love him. But we got a bond that probably would never be broken. When I lost Piper, I felt like I lost a brother. When Mean Gene passed away, that was my roommate in Legend House, Mean Gene Oakland.
That's right.
And we shared a room together and had a great time together. And now he's gone. And Howard Finkel was my friend for over 40 years, are no longer here. He used to, you know what Howard used to do every year?
What would he do, Tony?
Every year he would text me and say, "Happy birthday."
Isn't that nice?
Every year.
He always remembered you.
For 40 years, he called me on my birthday. Never missed a year. Every year for 40 years. Even when I was not with the WWE, it started back with Saba Symbol, because he didn't know how to get a hold of me until Saba Symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to call and say happy birthday. And then sometime, and then once, we got the phone with the text and all this and stuff, he stopped calling and he would just text me. And right now, if Howard was with Vince, every time I called the office, Howard would always talk to me. When Vince would want me to come to the office, Howard always came to meet me. And like I said, I owe me being in the WWE Hall of Fame to Howard, because he was the one that talked to Vince about putting me in it. I mean, I was nowhere on the radar.
That's funny that you mentioned that. The way I really began to, I'd met him a few times, but the way I began to interact with him was when he was always trying to get a hold of the Sheik and needed a little assistance with that, as we had a few Iron Sheik misadventures, but that's a different story for a different time. But that's how I got to know Howard really well, was trying to hunt down the Sheik and make sure he would get in for various WWE appearances they needed him for. So it's kind of funny that you just said that he would set up your appearances the same way.
Well, Howard kept in contact with everybody.
Yeah, he did. He did.
So anytime Vince wanted to reach somebody, you talk about somebody that ain't nobody talking about. Well, I'll tell you what, when I Saba Simba, this is how it happened. I was at the gym. It was called our Fitness World in Lewis, Maine. So the owner at that time was a guy called TC. We called him TC. Real name was Thomas, but we call him TC. So I came in the gym to do my evening student. I come in the morning, and then I come back in the afternoon to do my evening student. And when I came in that evening, TC came up and said, "Do you know Howard Finkel?" And I said, "Yeah, I know Howard." And he said, "Oh, I thought the guy was just bullshitting me." He said he called me and said he was from the WWF. It was WWF at that time. No, it was WWE. WWE, I think, with 2006.
Oh, in 2006. Right? Yeah, it turned into WWE in 2002.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he said with the WWE, and I said, yeah. He said they leave a number, so Howard left the number, and I called Howard, and that's how Vince got in contact with me for the WWE. Now, the first time Howard called me for the Hall of Fame, believe it or not, was the very first one.
Oh, really?
I could have went into the first one, but there was no paycheck, so I didn't go.
Oh, there wasn't a payday for it, really?
No payday. They would pay your expenses. This was the first one. The same one Ernie Ladd was in.
You're talking way back, okay, in the 90s.
Yeah, that's when Howard first called me. They wanted to put me in the Hall of Fame then.
You probably had an indie booking or something like that.
Yeah, but I didn't take it. I didn't take it there, and I'm glad I didn't when I look back on it. Because first of all, I would have just got a plaque. I would have never got a ring. My 2006 was the first year that they gave out the ring.
That was the first, really?
That was the first one. Wow. Nobody got a ring before 2006.
Nice. Well, you got a nice momentum.
Yeah, yep. I was on that class that got with the first class to get get a ring, and then after 2006, everybody the first person ever to get a WWE Hall of Fame ring was Chief Jay Strongbow. Called Vince he was a goodwill ambassador like Howard, and Vince would send him to different places. With these other Hall of Famers, they all had rings.
Right.
So Chief went back to Vince and said, Vince, I feel kind of silly there. All the guys that, for football and baseball and basketball and golf, they all showing off their rings at the convention. And I'm sitting there, a Hall of Famer with no ring.
Very valid point.
Yep. And so Howard was I tell you, they're going to have a hard time. He's going to be hard to replace. He was a very hard worker. He slept very little. He worked 7 days a week for the WWE. He never took a day off.
Well, I'll say this, Tony. You have worked thousands of live events in hundreds of countries, I believe, over the course of your career. Would you consider Howard to be the greatest ring announcer that ever introduced you to the squared circle?
I wouldn't say the greatest, but one of the greatest.
Who else would you put Howard in the same category as? Who else did you
Well,
think?
there's some of the guys I can't remember their names,
You
but I
don't remember their names,
they,
but they were really good. Okay.
yeah, my God, I remember some of them guys when they got out there. There was one guy that did it for years. I mean, he was up in his 70s doing it, and man, he was real good. They were before Howard, and they always had good ring announcement. Howard is going to fit right in that. I'd say Howard did more ring announcement than anybody I know.
Sure.
For a longer, he had a longer career at ring announcer, but it was one guy. He sounded like the guy said, "Let's get ready to rumble."
He sounded like Michael Buffer, the guy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
and we had some real good announcer. One of the best commentators that I had to make him number one was Gordon Solie.
You like Gordon Solie doing the commentary?
Gordon Solie, yeah, because Gordon could call the match. I mean, the way he would call a match was just phenomenal. He was right on cue. There was no sidetracking. His attention was. Some of the announcers would talk about a match and then go off talking about something else.
Yeah.
How he wouldn't do that. I mean, he'd get you in tune to the match. I mean, he would talk about other stuff in between the matches.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and Gorilla Monsoon was a great announcer. The team of Monsoon and Bobby Heenan would never be match again. I know they pushing the Miz, but the Miz would never come close to Piper Pitt.
No, not even close.
Not even close. No, because once the original comes out, you're never going to find a replacement for that. It's like wrestling, one of the type of business, you get one bite at the apple.
Right.
Like when the Ultimate Warrior came along, they never had another one.
Right.
When Andre the Giant came along, never had another one. They had big people to come in, but nothing like Andre. Never.
Nowhere near is over. That's for sure.
Not even close. Not even close to Andre the Giant. So Hulk Hogan. I mean, how many people? Even you take the guys today, a lot of them could walk through the airport, and there'd be some people that would recognize her, but there'd be a lot of people that would not recognize her.
Not like what it was during that era. No way.
Yeah, when Hogan was on top, there was no place he could go that he didn't get recognized.
Yeah, it was a part of pop culture.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the airport with him one time sitting there, and he was trying to get to his flight. He couldn't get to the flight. They had to call the security.
Wow.
And they told him to go ahead and get on the plane.
Wow.
Well, because he disrupted the whole freaking airport.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I never seen nothing like it. I mean, the whole airport. There'd been at least 100 to 150 people around Hogan.
they all wanted to
And
meet
he
him.
was sweating, and he was sweating. He was looking at me, and I broke through the crowd. I said, "Hold on, give me your bag, but I said, put your hand on my shoulder. I get you through this." So I started shoving people out the way, trying to get to the airport. So the lady, she was waiting there for me. She said, "You just go through the gate. You go through the gate. Go ahead." They didn't check him or nothing. They just, I got him on that plane.
They just wanted you on the plane, yeah.
Yeah, they want him on the plane, which caused a disruption. So I remember after that, about a week or so after that, Vince didn't fly Hogan commercial anymore.
Oh, he flew on a private plane?
He couldn't fly commercial.
Really?
No, he couldn't get through. He couldn't get through the freaking gate, brother. I mean, Hulkamania was unfreaking real. I mean, Hogan couldn't go nowhere without being recognized. I mean, how many 6'9", 350-pound muscle man with the long bleach blonde hair you see walking the street?
Well, I think that's lost to today's fans that really don't understand star power for what it was back during that generation when they really were a part of, American households from coast to coast as opposed to just, casual wrestling fans, so to speak.
Well, the internet got a lot to do with that, too.
Yeah.
You see, during the Tony Atlas, the Hulk Hogan era, they knew Tony Atlas and they knew Hulk Hogan, and that's all they knew about us. We was that fantasy. And the people love fantasy. Like, I remember I saw this movie called Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
Loved the movie. Loved them. I said, I got to buy that tape. Mm-hmm. Well, about a month later, they're going to show us how they did it. I never watched it again. It took all the mystique from it.
You think nowadays fans get to know the wrestlers too much? Okay, that's
they destroy the character.
Yeah.
I mean, the character get lost. I mean, just like when people started talking about wrestler, they talk to them like they talk about their next door neighbor.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, there was one guy, he put the guys' real names out there. Just like when Hulk Hogan was Hulk Hogan, nobody knew Turbo Land.
Right.
They just knew Hulk Hogan, and so that's how they picture him. So now when they see Hulk Hogan now, they see Turbo pretending to be Hulk Hogan.
Right. Yeah. Good.
That's not Hulk Hogan. That's a guy playing the character of Hulk Hogan. That's not Tony Atlas. That's Anthony White trying to be Tony Atlas. And see, just like Undertaker, I never knew his name.
Really?
We didn't know. Mr. Wrestling number 2, we used to call him 2. He wouldn't even let the boys know his name.
2 didn't even want the boys to know his name.
Right. You take Mil Mascaras. You know how many wrestlers that wrestle with Mil Mascara for years and years and years and don't even know what he looked like.
He caused a problem at the casino where we have the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion because he didn't want to take his mask off walking through the casino, and I guess that's against the law out there, yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Bill was very worried that people might get a peek, I guess, under the hood.
That's even now. See what I'm saying? Because that's how you're supposed to protect your character. Because once you expose the character, it's kind of like Zorro. Yeah. Zorro is only, and Batman, they only as popular as long as you don't know who's under the hood.
Right.
But once you take the mask off of Zorro, he ain't Zorro no more. And I think that social media have played a great part in, just like most of these talk shows, they talk about, they want to expose everything about the business. Yeah. So they leave nothing for the imagination.
All right, Tony, just a couple more questions before we go. We're taping these episodes out of order a little bit because we did 2 yesterday, but where Howard passed today, I'd like to try and get this one online tonight. Vince McMahon has taken a beating this week for all of those releases we talked about. If the fans, if you're watching this in order, you'll hear that on the second episode. When you add in the NXT and the agents, it's over 35 people that got released from WWE yesterday. But for the beating that Vince McMahon takes, I think fans might be interested in this story. When we were down in New York last year for WrestleMania weekend, I'm sure you remember that, Tony.
Right.
I had to go back and forth to the WWE hotel a few times for the appearances that we had set up. And Vince McMahon had paid an ambulance, a doctor, and a nurse to come from Connecticut at the facility that Howard Finkel was staying in and to bring him to the WWE host hotel for the weekend so he could interact with the boys and get a little peace of mind, I guess, away from the everyday medical wear and tear he was going through. And I was told that meant an awful lot to him, to be able to stay in a hotel and still have the care that he needed around the clock by that medical personnel.
Yes, that is a wonderful thing that Vince did for Howard. But Vince put a lot of people in bad shape.
Yeah.
See, Howard was blessed to be able to stay with the WWE for as long as he did. But you got other people that worked with Vince for a long period of time, sacrificed, bled for him, and everything else. And they would spend money on stuff that don't benefit the wrestlers at all. Just like during this coronavirus, Vince ain't offer no help to any Hall of Famer, to anyone out here.
Do you think
Nothing.
he should?
Yes.
You do. All right.
Yes. Because I'll tell you the reason why. If nothing else, he could write it off.
Very true. Very true.
And doing something good in the process. He ain't offered no help to anybody that ever worked for that organization. Ain't always been like that. I mean, when you die, he show up and do a little something. Yes, it probably meant a lot to Howard for Vince to do that, but it's also been a lot for Vince because Vince said, "Well, I paid my dues to Howard. I don't have to. I'm done with it now." See, so he's, I like Vince. I don't know why, but I do always liked him. I mean, I don't have any bad feeling towards him. But then when I think about Piper, what did Vince do for Piper's wife? If Hacksaw passed away, what would he do for Hacksaw? What would he do for Jimmy Hart? What would he do for me? What did he do for Rocky when they spit on his grave? Pretty much.
Right. Well, that was kind of an interesting story coming out of that.
Yeah. He may get credit from, a guy, Howard had to be with Vince for 40 years to get that type of respect.
Right.
Took Howard 40 years to get that. But see, Vince never set up no type of fund. Like that's how the Cauliflower Alley Club got started. They came together to raise money to help wrestlers when they need to pay their mortgage or when they need that. Vince never set up nothing for us guys. But then when one of us die, he comes out like he cares so much.
Well, I think it would be a good idea.
I don't know if he did that for Howard or he just did it for business.
Well, since no one knew, other than the people that were at the hotel, I would say he did that as a genuine gift to Howard. It's not like they publicized it.
Right.
All right. Well, Tony, I'll have to ask this. I know that Howard was a great fan of adult entertainment. Did he ever enjoy your foot shoe tape?
He took pictures of a girl standing on me, believe it or not, in Milwaukee.
Really?
Yeah, we got booked to go to this hockey game. There's the hockey team in Milwaukee. And we was at the arena, and we were talking about my foot thing. And this girl, she stood on my face, and Howard took the picture of it. When I come down, when we open the studio, I bring the picture that Howard took.
He got a kick out of it. No pun intended.
Yeah, because he see me doing that all the time because it's harmless.
It is harmless. You're not bothering anyone.
No, it's harmless. It's something you can do in public. He thought it was kind of cool.
Well, people have interesting reactions. If you've never seen the Tony Atlas foot abuse video, go on to YouTube and search Memories and Legends number 2.4, and that will bring you several minutes of this long tape that will blow your mind. That's a different story for a different time. All right, Tony, we're going to wrap up and let you go. Again, we want to remind you we have not one but two more of these great audio podcasts coming your way until Tony can physically make it back into the studio, along with our daily New England wrestling history videos and our Flashback Fridays. We're going to have Paul Orndorff on this week from a great interview we had several years back with him. But, Tony, you're doing okay up there.
Yep, so far so good. Thanks to the help of all the great fans that been sending in support to Boston Wrestling, helping me to make a living. So if y'all want to help some of us old timers doing this stuff, you send a donation or whatever you can to Boston Wrestling, and Dad will make sure that if we get into the right hand, like I said, I'm available for a personal, a private signing. I'm available to do artwork for people or anything. But I want to end on this note.
All right, let's hear it, brother.
Howard was a great person. I mean, people know him as an announcer, as one of the first employee to ever work for the WWE. But the man had a heart of gold. He never hurt anybody. He was very lovable. He would do anything. My wife loved him to death. I loved him. And he's going to be truly, truly, truly missed. And my birthday is the 23rd of this month. And one of the things I'm going to miss the most outside of spending my birthday with my wife, which I'll be unable to do because she's in the hospital and I can't go visit her. So they're going to be my birthday this year going to be very, very sad because I lost my best friend who texts me every year to wish me a happy birthday. I won't get that happy birthday from Howard this year, and I won't be able to share that first bite of birthday cake with my wife this year. So Howard, God bless you wherever you are, and I hope God bless and keep your family safe and happy. I'm going to miss you, brother, and with all my heart and love, goodbye, Howie.